All right, let's dive right in, shall we? We've got a mountain of articles previewing this first test between India and Australia. A ton to unpack here. This is the Border Gavaskar Trophy, round 1 in Perth.
Yeah, some really interesting narratives going into this one.
Definitely. The stakes, I mean, they couldn't be higher, could they?
No, not really. I mean, you've got India. They've had the upper hand for what seems like forever now. But those 2 losses earlier this year,
Oh, yeah.
they've got to be looking to bounce back from that.
Absolutely, a little revenge mission.
Yeah, you could say that. And for Australia, well, there's nothing quite like getting one over India, especially on home soil.
And they've got that Perth pitch, too.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The
Yeah.
curator's calling it rock hard.
A bowler's paradise, right.
Ah.
What do you think that'll do to the game?
Well, it'll be interesting to see how both teams play it, really. For India, it might mean rethinking their spin strategy.
Yeah. Ashwin Jadeja.
Exactly. Brilliant bowlers, of course, but on a pitch like this?
Maybe not so much.
Exactly. Could we even see them going with an all-pace attack? Now that'd be something.
That would be a bold move.
For sure.
Especially given how dominant their spinners have been, historically. But then you look at Australia. Stark, Hazelwood, Cummins.
Oh, fearsome trio.
They must be licking their chops at the thought of this pitch.
On paper, it's a dream scenario for them, isn't it? But this Perth pitch, it can be a bit of a wild card.
Unpredictable.
Exactly. It's not just about raw pace, it's control, it's accuracy, it's using that bounce to your advantage.
So even for guys like Stark and Cummins.
That's going to be a test.
Speaking of tests, the captains. Jasprit Bumrah for India.
And Pat Cummins for Australia.
2 fast bowlers. That's not something you see every day, is it?
It's pretty rare, actually. Adds a whole other dimension to this contest, I reckon.
A real clash of styles, potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, Bumrah, we know him as a bowler. Aggressive?
Go for the kill.
Exactly. Will we see that translate into his captaincy? Will he be attacking in the field with his bowling changes? That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
And then you've got Cummins, a bit more, measured in his approach, would you say?
Yeah, calmer, perhaps. And he's had a pretty good run as captain so far.
Do you think that contrast in leadership styles, could it play a role in how this match plays out?
It's definitely possible. This isn't just about individual talent anymore. It's about how you lead your team, how you set the tone, how you adapt to the conditions, And for Bumrah, he's stepping in for Rohit Sharma, who's out for this one.
That's right, yeah.
So that's another layer of pressure for him to deal with.
Speaking of pressure, what about Virat Kohli?
Ah, yes. The big question mark.
A legend of the game, but he's had a bit of a rough patch lately, hasn't he?
He has. Struggling for runs.
Do you think this Perth pitch, he's had some good times here before.
Could it be the catalyst for a Kohli resurgence? It's certainly a possibility. Kohli, he thrives on these challenges, right? And facing a fired-up Australian pace attack on a bouncy track, well, it might be just what he needs to rediscover that spark.
He did score a century here last time India played a test at Perth, didn't he?
He did. But let's not forget this Australian bowling attack.
Oh, they're world class.
It's not going to be easy.
Not at all. And on the topic of new faces, India's brought in some really exciting young talent. Yashasvi Jaiswal, the opener.
He looked good in his debut test.
Very impressive.
Fearless.
Aggressive.
But this is a whole other level, isn't it? Facing this bowling attack in their backyard. Can he handle the pressure? Can he make a statement on this stage? It's going to be fascinating to watch.
Absolutely. And for Australia, there's a newcomer generating a lot of buzz. Nathan McSweeney.
Buddha, they call him.
Because of his composure, apparently.
Yeah. Imagine facing Jasprit Bumrah on your test debut.
Trial by fire.
It'll be interesting to see if he can live up to that nickname and stay calm under that kind of pressure.
Because the mental game is huge in Test cricket, right?
Absolutely. Every bit as important as the physical side of things.
In this series, in a way, it feels like a bit of a clash of generations, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, you've got Australia, Cummins, Smith, Hazelwood, all these veterans who've seen and done it all. And then you've got India with this mix of youth and experience.
It begs the question, will experience win out, or will this youthful energy be the deciding factor?
That is the question. And on that note, I think we need to take a quick break. We'll be back in a moment to dig deeper into the X factors, the tactical battles, and what we can expect from both sides in this series opener. Don't go anywhere.
It really is a fascinating mix, isn't it? All that experience on one side and then this young, hungry energy on the other.
Exactly. You could argue that experience gives you a a certain edge, right? Knowing how to handle the pressure cooker of Test cricket. But then again, there's something to be said for that fearlessness of youth, not knowing any better, just going out there and giving it your all.
It can be a real double-edged sword, can't it? Sometimes that naivety can work in your favor. You're not burdened by the weight of past failures or expectations.
And speaking of shaking things up, India's added Devdutt Patikal to the squad.
Oh, interesting.
Lots of chatter about him potentially slotting in at number 3, especially with Rohit being out. What are your thoughts on that?
Patikal, he's an exciting young batsman. Showed some real promise in that series against England earlier this year.
Yeah.
But number 3, in a series like this,
That's a big ask.
huge responsibility. And if he does get the nod, he'll be facing a trial by fire against this Aussie attack, especially on a pitch like this.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about that rock-hard pitch. Really makes you think about the potential X-lies, doesn't it?
Right.
For India, do they stick with their spin-heavy approach, or do they go for a more pace-oriented attack?
Tough call.
What do you think?
It's a million-dollar question, isn't it? If they do go all pace, who gets the nod alongside Boomer and Shami?
So many options. Suraj Thakur, Umesh Yadav, each with their own strengths and weaknesses.
Exactly. And for Australia, I'm curious to see how they use Nathan Lyon.
The Guam.
World-class off-spinner. And on a pitch like this, he could be a real handful. But do they risk playing him alongside their 3 main quicks? Or do they go for a more specialist attack?
So many tactical decisions.
For both captains.
Yeah.
The bowling attack, the batting order, field placements, when to make those bowling changes. It all adds up.
And we haven't even talked about the weather yet.
Oh, that's right. Perth's been pretty soggy leading up to the match, hasn't it?
The curators even said they might have to, manufacture the baking process for the pitch because of the lack of sunshine.
Wow. Do you think that'll have any impact on how the pitch plays?
I mean, even if it ends up being rock hard
Yeah.
as advertised, you've got to think all that rain might make it a bit more unpredictable. Maybe some uneven bounce, a bit of movement off the seam.
Could play into the hands of the swing bowlers for sure.
Just another layer of complexity to this whole thing.
And that's what makes Test cricket so captivating, isn't it?
Absolutely. All these variables at play. Strategy, skill, mental fortitude.
And yeah, a bit of luck sometimes.
Definitely. And in a 5-match series, every session, every over, every single ball can swing the momentum.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. A real test of endurance.
Speaking of tests, this first test in Perth, it feels like a real crossroads for both these teams, doesn't it? India wanting to reassert their dominance.
Australia determined to reclaim their pride on home soil. A clash of styles, a clash of personalities.
A clash of generations.
Can't wait to see how it all unfolds.
It's going to be an absolute cracker of a series. I could feel it. We were talking about Kohli earlier, how this Perth pitch could be just what he needs to find his groove again.
Yeah, some players they click with certain venues, don't they? Like Perth has been good to Kohli in the past, but can he recapture that magic this time around? It's a big question mark for sure. This match, it could be a real turning point for him.
It really could. And then you think about those debutants, Jaiswal for India.
McSweeney for Australia.
First test match,
Yeah.
all eyes on them. Can you imagine the nerves?
Talk about pressure. To debut in a series like this, against an opponent like that, the packed stadium watching your every move, it takes serious mental strength. Be interesting to see how they handle it.
Absolutely. So many storylines, so many individual battles. It's hard to know where to look first. What are you going to be watching for in this test?
Yeah.
What are the key things, the deciding factors, in your opinion?
Well, for me, it all starts with India's batting. Can they handle this Perth pitch? Can they put up a decent total against this Australian attack? That's the first hurdle.
Right.
Then you got Boomer's captaincy, big shoes to fill, leading this team. Can he make the right calls under pressure? Can he inspire his team to victory? That's going to be crucial.
Yeah.
And lastly, it's about who can hold their nerve in those key moments. Test cricket, it's often won and lost in those little moments of brilliance or lapses in concentration. Whichever team can stay focused, stay composed when it matters most, they'll probably come out on top.
They often say test cricket, it's a bit like a chess match, right? Every move you make has consequences down the line.
Exactly. You have to think ahead, anticipate your opponent's moves. It's a real mental battle. And speaking of battles, this series, it's known for its fiery moments, shall we say.
Oh, yeah. India versus Australia. It's always a bit spicy.
There's a certain intensity that comes with this rivalry, a history of, let's call them, robust exchanges.
Do you think we'll see any fireworks in this first test?
I'd be surprised if we didn't. Both teams will be playing with their hearts on their sleeves, giving it everything they've got. There's bound to be some moments where things boil over, but at the end of the day, it's the cricket that counts. May the best team win.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's going to be an incredible contest. So to everyone listening, we want to hear from you. What are you most excited to see in this first test? Who do you think will come out on top? Let us know. We'll be back after the match to break down all the action, analyze the key moments that shape the outcome. Until then, enjoy the spectacle of Test cricket at its finest.
It's the Border Gavaskar Trophy, where legends are made and history is written. Don't miss it.